renationalising rail services be a disaster? That's what we're talking about next. 0207 862 2222 is the number. Most people who travel by train will tell you that work needs to be done to improve the services. Now, the government's answer is to bring the rail service under public ownership, starting with the renationalisation of 3 services next year. Ministers say that it will improve reliability, it will boost economic growth, and it will save £150 million a year in fees paid to rail operators. Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish services already under government control. So do you think that it will work in England, or is there a danger that services will be worse than ever? Lizzie, do you take the train very often?
I do, actually. I've started taking the train. I've started taking the train because I tell you why. Well, it's the Christmas season. There's so many parties, and so I've just thought it's easy just to get the train.
Yeah.
But oh my word, Keir Starmer in charge of the railways. I mean, he's got the management skills of Homer Simpson. It would really worry me.
What gives you that evidence? Where's the evidence to back that up?
What with Keir Starmer so far? Well, he's only been in power 5 months. We've got more protests coming from the farmers, the pensioners. One resignation. His transport secretary was known as an ex-fraudulent criminal who he had to go, Louise Haigh. And now we've got Heidi Alexander, who's in charge. She was asked 3 times the other day of the costings of this and couldn't give the answer. As always, what Labour do, just lift the carpet up and put it under there and don't actually give us.
What would you do to improve the rail services?
Well, I would actually impose big fines on those that are in charge for lack of performance, and stop the bonuses, put a cap on that, and go from there. But I think the government running anything. Tell me of something good that what the government have run. Tell me what the costings will be, Kevin, because you should know. Because what worried me, Heidi Alexander didn't know.
Look. I know because you're a right winger, you don't like the Labour government. That's fair enough. But there is huge public support, sustained public support for renationalising, taking back the public ownership rail, including by Reform UK voters. It's been a 30-year privatisation experiment, which wasn't repeated around Europe because it's been a train crash, quite frankly. And putting it back together and the public ownership and public control, you can have a system that is coordinated, and it needs investment, unquestionably, and you have to show the improvements. Passengers have to have a better experience. Fewer cancellations for a start.
Do you think this government can do that?
You will do that with rail in public hands. There was a reason why France and Italy and Spain and Germany didn't privatise their rail systems. You know what happened? All their state rail systems came over and started buying stakes in ours to make profits. You'll stop the profits going out. You'll stop the £150 million a year spent on contracts with the private sector, franchising. You need a plan to make it better.
Okay.
And it's a service that is better in
But at
public
the moment,
hands.
the government is already in charge, as far as I am aware, of the actual railways. So the infrastructure that's there, the government are in charge of. It is the train operators that are running the carriages back and forth on that infrastructure. Now, the private companies are saying the reason that we've got so many delays, the reason that we don't get the right kind of snow or the right kind of rain that gives us cancellations is because the infrastructure in place isn't good enough, and they blame it on the infrastructure. And therefore, we're trusting the people who are causing the issues with the entirety of the network.
In part, it was
broken.
When it was privatised by John Major 30 years ago, it was broken into 100 pieces. It was a lunatic plan. They broke it into 100 pieces. Now, those train operating companies, some of which have gone bust, we take back into public ownership. For instance, I use trains all the time. I use LNER to go home to the northeast. That's the line that goes through York and goes on to Leeds, Newcastle, up to Edinburgh, Aberdeen. When it's been in public hands, because it's gone bust in the private sector, it's been better. It has always improved its service results. And those operating companies, they're inefficient because they're there for their shareholders and their investors, as they would call them, the speculators. So they want to take money out of the system to give them dividends, when that money would be better reinvested in the system. No, there's no magic.
Kevin,
it's not a magic
Kevin,
wand.
Your
but
government,
it will be better.
Has paid millions to the unions,
your,
to the train drivers.
Your government privatised it. Your government ran it into the ground.
I'm talking about your government.
Terrible
I'm
results.
looking forward. I'm not talking about.
No, you don't want it because you can't defend your record.
I don't want to talk about the.
I'm going to have to put you both on pause now because we are going to have to run to a break.
Sadly,
we're literally hurtling to a break, Lizzie. So you can make your point.
No, but they can't run the
break. Now we're taking your calls on this. Will renationalising rail services be a disaster? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Now the government say it will improve reliability and boost economic growth. Notably haven't said anything about the rail fares though, apart from they probably won't go down. We're going to go to the calls and speak to John. John, what do you make of this? Should we be renationalising the rail services?
Yes, it can't possibly be anything other than a good idea for the taxpayer and for the travelling public. Since the privatised farce was created all those years ago, the amount of subsidy that's used to keep the privatised farce going is about 6 times as much as what BR used to receive to run the entire railway system. And I'm only talking about the privatised franchises that run the railways in England itself, not Scotland and Wales, where they're doing their own thing. Nationalised their railway. It cannot be anything but a good idea. All of the privatised farcical companies have their own management structures with very, very highly paid managers, all employing bureaucracies to run their individual franchises, all wasting money that could be better invested in running the railway system itself.
John, I hear your arguments, but I've got 2 questions for you. The first one is, if that's all true, why on earth were they privatised in the first place if nationalised railways work so much better than private ones? My second question is, council bosses are paid extraordinary wages, so it's not like everyone that works for the government is on a decreased wage. So we're still likely to see very high wages of people that are managing the railways. So do you really think there's going to be a cost saving there?
Well, there'll be a lot less of them to start with because there'll only be one management structure, not 16 to 20, just running the ones in England alone. The efficiencies that will become about from running the railway as a single system rather than a multitude of different companies competing against each other for the same revenue pot, it cannot possibly be anything other than a great idea. As the reason why the railway was privatised in the first place was John Major had to have something to beat his chest with after Maggie had said, I don't want to nationalise the railway because I know it's But John Major, being the person he was, decided, oh no, I've got to prove that I can also denationalise something. And there was only just about by that time that the railways left. And the other main reason was politicians are lazy people and they don't want you and me and everybody else writing to them about the delay to their train service the previous evening. They just want to say, oh, go and write to a train.
You should call in our next debate, John. Sounds like you'll have something to say on that. John makes a fair point, though, in terms of efficiencies. Rather than having lots of different managers, lots of different bosses getting paid CEO, wages, we'll just maybe have one, maybe two, a few people running one system, and you'll get cost efficiencies when running one system.
Well, that would be great, but do we have the confidence in this government to do that? Heidi Alexander, she couldn't answer the question. What would be the cost? You can't answer the question.
No, hang on. No.
It will be up to us.
She said 150 million pounds will be saved by not having franchising, putting contracts out all the time. It's the other savings will depend on how much you put back into investment. That's that's what she can't say for. That's what she can't say for certain. But you can. Oh, don't. I mean, this is just getting silly now. But he makes a fair point. A unified, coordinated system is cheaper to run now. People in Wales or using ScotRail.
Why is the government not committing to lower prices, ticket prices? Because really, that's what people want. They want to see in their back pocket
well, in fact,
that it's cheaper.
Yeah, there's a system that's been inherited that fares are going to go up again by
4% or something.
Yeah, 4%. In the longer run, if you're taking profits, right, the privatised rail companies are all about making profits. It's not really about running a railway. That's a byproduct. It's all about making money. You can have simpler tickets because you're not trying to rip off passengers in the same way. But you can't all of a sudden just say, right, we'll never increase a fare again, because if you have inflation, the cost of running the railway go up. Where would that money come from? Taxpayers would then have to pay.
So
But you've got to produce a better railway from public ownership. That's unquestionably the case.
Okay.
And if you don't, then it'll have failed. But I'm pretty certain within 4 years they will be able to show improvements that'll be worth having.
I'm just saying, Kevin, I think there's many people that won't trust this government to do this and do a good job of it. There'll be lower hours work, no weekend trains.
Oh, Lizzie.
And look, the infrastructure isn't right. I even said I went on a train, there's a bit of snow.
Lizzie, that's happening now, Lizzie.
We've got lots of messages coming in on this. I just want to read a couple of them. But get your calls in 0207 862 2222. Do you trust the government to renationalise the railway and make it better? Jonathan on Facebook says, at the moment, profits go to shareholders, profits need to be reinvested. This will only happen in the public sector, so I think it's a good step. That's a pro. Roy says, I agree with nationalising the trains, but now I worry how much it may end up costing the taxpayer. I'm not sure I trust the government to run them efficiently. Efficiently. That's sort of in line with what you're saying there, Lizzie. Paul says nationalisation should improve services, but it will only be as good as the government running it. Now, is it fair to criticise the government so early when they've not been in power for very long? Granted, NHS is on its knees, education system is crying out for more money. Many of our services are, in a terrible, terrible state. But has that been Labour's fault?
Yes. A lot. They've had the worst start. I think he's probably Keir Starmer, one of our worst prime ministers. The start, he's like minus 32 in the polling in popularity today. He has done, I think, a disastrous job. I think what he's done to the farmers, taking away from the pensioners, I think it is absolutely disgraceful. I feel he has lied, doing this working people he wouldn't tax. All of these things. And then we had also the Freebie-gate, the working class hero in his freebie suits and glasses. Sorry, for me, no, I don't trust him. I've got more confidence putting a bet on a rocking horse at the Epsom races than them.
The answer to your question is no, it's not fair to criticise a Labour government after 14 years of Conservatives for the state of the NHS, education or rail, because the other lot have been in power. It will be fair to criticise Labour in 2, 3, certainly 4 years if they haven't improved those services. But they've inherited problems. The same with prisons, criminal justice system, potholes in roads. They've inherited those. If they don't make it better, the criticism will be fair.
What Kevin's saying is Labour have had to make difficult decisions to try and claw back money in order to improve the services. Yeah. That's part of the thing, is they don't want to go back to austerity, so they're clawing back double the amount they think they need in order to improve the services, and therefore they'll have the money to spend on the railway.
So the first order of any government is to look after its own people. So why are we giving so much money for climate crisis abroad, for foreign aid, so many other issues? They've spent actually like 70 billion giving away to other issues.
Who spelled it?
The Labour government have.
Hang on, it's only been in 5 months.
They have given to the unions. They have given them foreign aid. I can list it all to you. Look it up.
They have
given. They have this 22 billion black hole.
I'm glad you're not running a railway.
No, Kevin. The 22 billion black hole that they keep harping on about, they wouldn't. Rachel from accounts wouldn't show the evidence. And
she did produce evidence.
One
it's
lie
disputed.
after another, and I'm sorry, his lack of judgment with his cabinet, having Louise Hagan, that has got a criminal record, is atrocious.
Everything was so lovely.
All right, I'm going to go back
before?
to the phones now. John from London, what's your view when it comes to renationalising the railways? Do you trust this government to be able to do it well?
Sorry, what renationalising the railways?
Yes.
Well, yes, it is a good idea.
Do you trust the government to do it?
Don't forget, all railway fares in London at the moment are not only London, in the UK, particularly England, are the highest they're even higher than they are in any parts of Japan or anything like that.
It's actually cheaper sometimes to fly, which is worrying. So, John, do you trust the government to bring those costs down? Because they're not really promoting that as a reason for renationalisation.
Well, there's no guarantee they're going to take the price of those tickets down or anything like that at the moment. But the fact of the matter is that if there's money being put into it or something like that, and it's generating money, it may go back into running a better service, not running into the London Stock Exchange. And that's where it has been going. And that's what the Tories have been doing. They have been doing this all the time, and their mates and all that for everything. The only thing they didn't get their hands on in a big way was the national health, which was a great thing, because if Boris Johnson had his way, that would have been gone to the Americans. Probably and maybe to the geezer that got shot in New York yesterday.
Okay, well, John, I think it sounds like you're more optimistic about this government than the last government anyway, that things would be better renationalising the railways under them. John, thank you for your call. David from Lancashire, what's your view when it comes to renationalising the railways?
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon. I worked on the railway for 30 odd years and had a lovely time, and it was excellent service. Then we did our best. But when it went privatised, you suddenly find out that you could not run the train because you haven't got a driver because you work for another railway company. And it's happened many, many times as this, where you've got a train sitting outside the train, one sat in the station, empty carriages I could have sent to Carlisle to bring people back because they were stranded, and I could not use that train because it belonged to somebody else.
David,
and
that must be incredibly frustrating, and actually you're bringing to life sort of what Kevin was getting to when you've got lots of different systems all trying to unite as one. There are complexities there, whereas if you have one person running all of it, that might be less confusing and there wouldn't be trains that you can't get because they're owned by different companies. Thank you very much for your call and actually bringing that, I suppose, to life.